The Mythical War by Cameron Cale. Chapter 1. A Long Night. The young woman's eyes were chilling, terrifyingly soulless. They were black and deep, simultaneously empty and so filled with pain that anyone who made the mistake of meeting her eyes would be left hurting for a long time. Alencia wondered what had happened to cause the woman's pain. A young man sat across from her, long and subtly muscled. His dark blonde hair was tied at the base of his skull, shorter than the woman's, but not by much. He never met her eyes, watching the sun set through the window. His chair was carefully angled so he would not be in the direct rays of the sun. Alencia pulled a 20 out of her wallet, leaving it on the table to cover her meal. She stood, stepping out of the light into the setting sun. She strolled down the street, careful not to bring any attention to herself. "Hey, kid." Alencia raised her eyebrow at the guy. She wasn't more than a few years younger than him. He had no room to talk. She sighed, eyeing him. He was goth, silver piercings lining one ear, a Celtic tattoo peeking out from under his shirt. She didn't even justify his statement with a question, simply flat, "What?" "You ain't safe on these streets, kid," he said, his voice rough from smoking. "You'd better get to the rendezvous, or to the ace of spades. They're Switzes." Valencia raised her eyebrow higher. Instead of questioning it, she simply nodded and continued walking. "If you go to the rendezvous, you're gonna want to make sure you're on Day's good side. She has a problem with some of your kind ever since Tone attacked the Pack Alpha." "Sure thing, dude." Alencia continued walking. "Stupid kid," the man muttered, turning back to the bar he'd just come from. Alencia started noticing them on her walk, people who had a haunted look about them, as if they were waging a silent war. Some people eyed her warily, as if expecting her to attack, and others who seemed to refuse to meet her eyes, afraid of people thinking they knew each other. It was odd. A few blocks later, she noticed a dark van following her. The windows were tinted, too dark to see in. Alencia became uncomfortable, walking a little faster. The van kept up with her. She dashed down an alley, shifting to barn owl mid-step. She took to the skies, but not fast enough. She felt a needle pierce her side, and she lost altitude until she hit the roof below, losing consciousness. She awoke in a simple room, without windows or a knob on her door. The room had only a bed, which she was laying on, and a toilet, sink, and shower blocked off with a silkscreen. Alencia explored every inch of the room, finding no way to escape. She cursed aloud, slamming her fists against the concrete wall, then cursed again as her hand broke. The door creaked open. She turned quickly to see the woman from the cafe. "Come on," she urged. "We've got less than a 2-minute window to get you out of here. They'll just use you as a weapon till you're dead. They don't care about your well-being or health. They just care that you kill as many people as possible, even if that means blowing you up." 90 seconds, a male voice urged from outside. "Get up and come out here." Alencia followed her out. The man she'd been with was there as well, his eyes fixed on her hand, where the skin was torn and bleeding. "Her hand's broken," he said in a low voice. "Shit." The woman turned to her. "Give me your hand." Alencia stretched her arm out, her hand slightly curled. The woman wrapped her long fingers gently around her hand. Alencia flinched as her bones realigned and her knuckles burned. She tried to yank her hand back, but found she couldn't. When the woman released her hand, it was good as new. She flexed her fingers. It still hurt, but it was no longer broken. "All right, go. Start running. Keep up with Riordan, and you'll be fine. If you can't keep up, shift." Alencia's jaw dropped at the realization that the girl knew what she was. Before she could respond, the woman grabbed the man's arm and kissed him fiercely. "I'll meet you at the rendezvous." The man nodded, then watched as she disappeared down the hall. He turned to Alencia. "Start running." He easily fell into step just ahead of her, gently leading her through the halls. Around a corner, a group of guards were waiting for them. "Can you run faster?" Riordan asked in a low voice. Alencia nodded, deciding to ignore her already burning lungs. "On my signal, run, fast as you can. Don't look back. Take a right behind them, skip these 2 corridors, take a left. I'll catch up. All right?" She nodded again. "On 3. She steadied herself, glaring the guards down. They were going for guns. That would hurt if they caught her. 1. She felt a shift tugging at her. She wanted to shift to a faster animal. Falcon, perhaps. 2. She felt the shift start to take over. Feathers spread across her body, and she started to shrink. It was really the blink of an eye, but it felt like it stretched out for several long moments. 3. The hall went suddenly black, and the guns popped. None touched her as the shift finished, and she went straight up and across, hugging the wall. She ducked around the corner, shifting to a snowy owl. The hall snapped into view, and she passed 1, 2, 3 halls before turning left. Just as she turned a corner, shifting back to human form, the lights flicked on. Riordan stood against a wall, wiping blood from his lips. He smirked at her. "Let's go." She decided not to ask. They left the building uncontested, Riordan introducing himself. Ma petite, I am sorry we had to startle you like this. Deva, she's not exactly friendly anymore. The war's changed a lot of people, but her especially. I'm Riordan. I'm a vampire, and I was a liaison for the local courts. What is your name? I'm Alicia, but I thought... Well, you know. Riordan grinned. That vampires don't exist? He laughed softly. I would think you, as a shifter, would know better than that, Alicia. Mom and Dad said we were different, that people like us didn't really exist. Chris and James, what did I tell you, Rio? They'd breed ignorant children and hope that their ignorance would keep them safe. The woman was standing against the wall of an abandoned building, her arms crossed. It was that ignorance that got them killed. She turned to the door swinging open at a wave of her hand. Once she stepped over the threshold, her image shifted, her normal clothing dissolving to a dress that looked like it was spun from moonlight. A pair of dark, tattered wings unfurled from her shoulder blades, fluttering softly as she walked. Alancia turned to Riordan, shock plainly on her face. Fairy, he murmured. Dark court. At her blank expression, he sighed. We have a lot to explain. He led the way into the dark room. Alancia's eyes adjusted to the dim lighting quickly, realizing almost immediately they'd walked into a bar. The woman stepped behind the bar, twisting her hair up and back, washing her hands at the sink behind the bar. Riordan slipped onto a stool, motioning for Alancia to take the stool next to him. She slowly slid into the seat, glancing around. Aren't you going to get in trouble for having a minor at the bar? The woman laughed. No one's going to come in here and try to tell me what to do with my bar, she said. The rendezvous is off limits to laws. Normal people don't notice it, and warriors are too busy getting drunk to care that half the people here are underage. No one really cares if their tender is 19. Just as long as you've got something strong and cold, Riordan added. Alancia was surprised. She thought the woman was much older than her, not only a year her senior. The woman poured 3 drinks, one of rum, one of whiskey mixed with soda, and 1 wine cooler over a glass filled with ice. She slid the rum to Riordan and the wine cooler to Alancia. I don't. You will, the fairy promised. She knocked back half her drink. So, how much do you know? Nothing. She sighed. She turned, banging on the wall behind her. I'm busy, damn it! A muffled voice shouted. Do you think I care? She shouted back. Several crashes and curses followed before the floor opened up and another woman walked out. What? She demanded irritably. Dira, meet Allie. Alancia, meet the neighborhood witch. Madeira, nice to meet you, the woman said. Why do you need me, Deva? Allie doesn't know jack about... Jeez, were her parents Chris and Jamie? Silence answered her question. Oh! Madeira lifted herself onto the bar, swinging her legs over. This is going to be a long night.